Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Moszkowicz show. The occasion is a very sad occasion. Former Senator Harry Reid passed away. He was one of the UAP disclosure pioneers. He was the biggest support of Mr. Elizondo. He did so much, to create awareness about the UAP topic. I just wanted to talk to my friends about Mr. Reid and honor his memory. So let me introduce my first guest and also someone who interviewed Mr. Reid not that long ago. Without further ado, here is Mr. Shawn Rush. Boom. Hello,
What's
Shawn.
it?
How are you, man?
Good. What's up, boss? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
Unfortunately, it's not a very nice occasion. So let me pull up our next guest, and then I'll give you the word first, sir. Hold on.
Sure.
So my next guest is Vinnie Adams, Disclosure Team, one of my podcasting friends, and he's here to remember Mr. Reid too. Welcome, Vin. Hello,
Hey,
sir.
chaps. Good to see you as always. But yeah, you're right. It's not the best circumstances, but we're here to remember Senator Reid, and it'll be a great discussion. So yeah, thanks for letting me be here.
Yes, and my audience, more people will jump in during this podcast. So stay put. Shawn, I want to start with you because you might be one of the last people to actually interview Mr. Reid not that long ago. So your thoughts about Harry? How did you
Oh
think?
well, yeah. I'm not sure about that or not. I'd have to check. But all I can say is that I'm like, most of the time in life, you're just living it, and you're kind of going through the motions as things come, and great things come just as well as not great things. And when I had the opportunity to interview Senator Reid, it was one of those great things that I was super excited about for many reasons. One is because if it wasn't for him and Knapp and them meeting, we might not be here and have this medium to do this kind of thing. Um, so it was a pretty important thing for me, and being new to everything and having an experience, just about a year before that, less than a year, maybe. Um, Everything felt like it was happening so fast. Like my life just flipped upside down. I'm interviewing Senator Reid. It was all pretty surreal. And then we had all those tech issues.
Hmm.
The guy didn't have good internet, and it was, but it was still a great interview. And I remember before we went live, everything was working fine, and we actually discussed my experience. And he asked me, "I understand you had an experience. Can you tell me about it?" And I told him. And he even asked like another question, like about the dream premonition part, and he was pretty taken aback, and he took it serious, and he was genuine, and that in itself like meant a lot to me. A person of his stature actually caring about my experience and what it was like, let alone taking out time of it in his life to do a show that where it ended up, it has like 1,000 plays or something, 1,500 plays or something. He's got a lot of stuff to do. And he wasn't doing so well. So that was just goes to show what kind of person he is. So I knew he was sick, but I didn't know how close or not it was to the end. I even had just talked to his assistant about him coming back, and she told me to touch base with him in the new year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was pretty surprising. Maybe it shouldn't have been, I don't know, but it was. And it sucks, man. It really does suck.
Yeah. Okay, Vin, before I go to you, I see our friend Graham Randall is here.
Hey,
Hey, Graham.
Graham.
Hello, everybody. Sad
Hey,
day.
Graham.
Hey, thank you for jumping on to honor and remember Mr. Reid. First, let me go to Vinny. I want to know everything about Vin's thoughts about what Mr. Reid meant to him and disclosure. So Vin, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, man. Yeah, obviously I've looked into the background of the way that Harry Reid was involved with all the processes that have led us to this year, let's say, and the programs that we now know about and things like that. But it's funny because when Shawn interviewed Senator Reid, I just touched base with his team, and then Shawn said, "Oh, I've got this interview with Senator Reid." So I took a big step back and said, "I'm not going to try and do an interview at the same time." So I sort of held back and thought, "I'll wait," and so never really got back to making it happen. So I feel like I didn't get the chance to speak to him, but it was for the right reasons. And I know Shawn did such a great job. It doesn't matter. And it's funny because Graham's here now, and I found out, or I first heard last night, I was listening to Graham. He was making an appearance on the Martin Willis podcast, and I just always check the news and stuff and saw the news. So it's funny, the synchronicities and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there's so much history to Senator Reid's involvement in the UFO subject, dating right back to the mid-90s when he first got introduced to Robert Bigelow through George Knapp, and then John Alexander and people like that. So it's an incredible backstory. He's done so much behind the scenes that we didn't know about for so many years, and then some more things, you know, that we do know about these days. But it's an epic story, and the man will be missed, 100%.
Yeah. Hey, Graham, before I jump to you, I see we have another friend waiting in the back room. So I'm going to introduce him first, and then I'm going to go straight to you, my sir. So let me introduce to you guys our friend, Danielle Miller. Hi, Danielle.
Hey, everybody. How we doing, guys?
Hello, Dan.
Good to see
Hey,
you.
Daniel.
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you?
Hey,
Daniel,
very well.
Daniel, before I go to you,
Yeah.
I want to talk to Graham Randell
Absolutely.
about his how he remembers Mr. Reid. But thank you for joining us in remembering and honoring Mr. Reid.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite. It's always happy to talk about him.
Yeah,
I guess I wasn't as fortunate to speak to him directly as you were, Shawn, and you were, Max, and you might have been, Vinnie. But so I guess I'm from somebody looking on the outside of everything, but just looking across the messages of support, of sympathy that have come right across the political spectrum today in America, and it's like kind of bipartisan. I mean, I'm not up to speed with American politics by any means. I'm not an expert, but looking to see the kind of people who have made comments and the things that they've said, that shows that somebody who was prepared to like span a divide, and just even taking UFOs out of it, there's somebody who could reach across kind of this yawning chasm that seems to have developed in American politics. So that's a rare thing. But in terms of somebody, as I put in my tweet today, somebody who's prepared to stick their neck out, maybe not publicly to start with, but who was prepared to sort of put his head on a political chopping block to put money up for a potentially a program that could come and bite him if it all went pear-shaped, or it had some scrutiny to say, what you're spending your money on this for, then that had full of political pitfalls. But he was prepared to put his money there, or to get the money raised for that. And that was a huge thing when we found out about that. Somebody of his caliber was and his stature in American politics, leader of the House, etc., was prepared to do that, and then everything that managed to facilitate. And we wouldn't be in the position we're in today if it wasn't for Harry Reid. There's no going away from that. You can't imagine somebody else sticking their neck out in that same fashion to do that. Maybe there are. Maybe there'll be somebody who comes along tomorrow and carries the torch for him in politics. I don't know, but that's a rare person, a politician who's got the courage of his convictions when he is interested in something like this, to go, yes, I'll do this, and then to come out publicly and tell everybody what he did, and suffer whatever brickbats or political fallout that might have caused him, and whatever, because obviously we don't know what went on behind the scenes in terms of what flack he was getting, because he sorted this out when he did it. But then also afterwards, when he started talking publicly, and also started talking on the likes of your show, Shawn and Max's show, but also on the public, on the press at large, when you saw him appear on American TV, that was a big thing. That caused a big stir. But he wasn't frightened. He didn't run away from that.
He was an incredible person. Also, he was a fighter, and I even know as a young man, he was a boxer, and that shows, in his mentality. This dude was not about to give up. He was fighting for disclosure. So, Daniel, your thoughts on Mr. Reid and his passing?
Yeah, I mean, what a loss, right? He truly was a powerhouse in the Senate. You know, when you look back at some of the most important legislation he passed, which was the Affordable Healthcare Act for all, like what people call Obamacare here in America. But that was really would have never happened without him. And that is a major piece of legislation that, as an American, I think changed a lot of Americans' lives. And I know as someone who is not traditionally employed through a regular employer, thanks to him, I can afford reasonable health insurance. And, you know, so I think more than just in UFOs, he really affected a lot of American lives for the better. And, you know, amongst the many other things he did do in his, I think, about 10 years of being in power as the minority leader on the Senate. And I think it really goes to show how he cared about things for the right reasons. You know, UFOs is never something that if one cared about how one was coming across, you would ever touch, no matter your interest, you know. And also in terms of just some of the things he did throughout the years, he was always about getting things done, no matter kind of what the result may have been in terms of how he's perceived. He was always known to be antisocial. He wouldn't go to these parties. He wouldn't run the usual circuit, you know, in the Senate of you know, all these, not that there weren't backroom deals, but he really, I think, showed a level of not giving an F that I feel like maybe a lot more of our leadership could do with. You know, he did things for the right reasons. And I think right now, as we are seeing in these obits, not much of is being mentioned when it comes to the UAP topic. And he did a lot of amazing things. So I know some people are a little upset, but I almost think it's almost a positive in a weird way, because I know that his staffers, when he really wanted to talk about it, were like, don't get into this. This is a bad idea. Don't touch this topic. It's going to tarnish your reputation. But at the end of, you know, nearing the tail end of his life, he really put his foot down on this, and it made a really big difference. And look at these obituaries. There's no one mocking him about the topic. Very few even mentioning it. It's he's making a big difference, and there's not even really much movement on it in the terms of a scornful point of view. No one really seems to be making fun of him for it. So I think, if anything, that also shows to other people who maybe are scared to touch it, like, look, he's fine. He's well respected, rightfully so. Just because you talk about UFOs isn't going to suddenly mean everyone's going to point and laugh at you, right?
Yeah.
And I think, lastly, to follow up, I just think no matter what comes from this, I think if anything, just the fact that now I think our service members, people in uniform who are encountering weird things, hopefully, thanks to him, they can now say something without fear of consequences. If anything, that is more than anything, I think, is really hopefully made a big difference for them. So he's a great man.
That might be the most important thing for UAP disclosure, that you know, the military men and women now feel empowered to speak out and tell their story. On that note, Josh, welcome, man. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's fine. And it's great to see you guys. I'm sorry I'm late. I was in the shower and it takes a while to get this dry. So.
Well, you're gorgeous. Josh, let's jump right to you. So your thoughts on the passing and the life of Mr. Reid?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a sad day. I wasn't really expecting to see that news at all. And it kind of hit me by surprise, and it didn't really sink in until today, really, when I was looking through Twitter and everyone's posts and stuff. And I mean, he's been such a great proponent for this, for the topic, really. He's got this into the mainstream in a big way. He's kind of one of the first politicians to kind of talk about this in like the public realm, which has drawn a lot of attention to the subject. And I think with Harry Reid, I think the work he's done, it's not going to really be appreciated until a few years later when this is further down the line, if that makes sense. So I think obviously, you know, he's done such great work, but I think we're really going to appreciate the work he's done in the next like 5 years or so. I think it's going to show them.
Yeah, definitely. So I still can't believe I interviewed that man back in May. It was just so surreal to me, you know, that a man of his stature was willing to you know, tell about his work and his story about, you know, his struggle to create awareness about UAP. And he was so generous about that, you know. And take into account this man, you know, was working with the former presidents Obama, Clinton, and this is something he was willing to talk to me about. That he actually said when I asked him, "Have you ever talked with President Obama about UAP?" He said, "Yeah, I did," and it was so mind blowing to me. And I think you know, and that's what I mean with him being so generous and very honest, actually.
Yeah, I remember the weeks leading up to your interview, Max. I was lucky enough that you let me know that it was happening, and it just showed his character, didn't it? That he's willing to talk to anyone that has an interest in the subject, you know. And I saw your excitement, and it was a big deal, you know. It really was, you know. It showed that he's a man of the people. You know, I'm from the UK, so I put politics or American politics completely aside and just look at him as a man who's a proponent for more transparency and, you know, being open with discussions on the subject of UAP, and he's willing to have it with people like us. I mean,
I'm a dude from Holland, for God's sake. You know? And he was willing to, yeah.
Let me ask you, what was, you know, your I guess maybe favorite or a favorite memory of your interview, or what stood out to you the most from the interview? You know, what's something that you remember that you know sticks with you?
Well, what always will stick with me is when he said he tried to get access to Lockheed Martin and was denied access. I thought that was one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever heard. Like a man of his stature in Congress, they just bluntly denied him access. And, you know, to me, those are big red flags. You know, there is something going on here.
Yeah.
So that was big for me. And to you guys, like to all of you, what do you think is the most important thing Mr. Reid has ever disclosed out in the open?
Can I just jump in quickly, and then I'll shut up? Is he actually wrote a letter to the OUSDI asking for ATIP to be read into some of the secrets regarding UAP. Now that says to me that he knew there were secrets there. He knew, he may not have known what they are, but he wanted ATIP to get read into those secrets. Now we can only speculate on what those secrets were, but we know, you know, Harry Reid's been out to Area 51 and things like that. So maybe he was just on the precipice, on the edge of finding out that vital piece of information. I think that's, you know, I've been dwelling on that a bit today. I've been looking up a bit of his background and the stuff that's been put out on him. And it's just, he either knew something or he was just about to kind of break into it with Lockheed Martin and that. But, you know, he was trying to get ATIP SAP status and things like that. He was trying his hardest, man.
Yeah, also he had this naughty little twinkle in his eyes and this weird little smile. It's exactly what you're saying. You know, he knew more. So
I think he was just an early adopter of what we're now seeing. He was a person who seemed to set the ball rolling in terms of getting, you know, people behind the scenes moving, looking at things, putting money, serious money aside. I mean, okay, 22 million wasn't a serious money nowadays, but it was in terms of UFO research, UAP research, and other types of research. That was a big deal. Even just mentioned to squeeze that out of a budget would be an effort in itself, because that must have taken some, you know, probably some horse trading, political horse trading behind the scenes, just to be able to squeeze that out of a budget somewhere, because somebody else would have been left out. That's how it all works. So I think that's probably, you know, for him to come along so early, even before 2017, 10 years beforehand, and he's like thinking ahead as to what we need to do to push this forward. He's so interested in getting it done. I think people forget that it actually goes back quite a long way. It's not just the things that have happened recently. You know, you're going back, 14 years now. So yeah, that's what I take from it.
Well put. I just he to me, you know, the end of, you know, if stigma ever really goes away, I think we can pinpoint the start of that process with him. You know, you can't really stigmatize the topic when such a well-addressed, distinguished senator is taking it on and wants to, you know, have it be investigated and put, you know, budget towards it so it can be investigated, because there's enough, you know, clues to him, you know, whether he knew more or not, to investigate it, right? And he took it on, and he made it public, and he wasn't shy about it. And if stigma is going to ever go away, it's going to be because of actions just like those. And so that stood out to me a lot. And I think, you know, as time progresses, that will be, you know, it already seems like a huge moment, but it'll seem like an even bigger moment as time moves on. And maybe we get to a point where, you know, discussing UAPs or UFOs is, you know, just as valid as discussing anything else. So.
Sure. And thank you, Mostly Space. George Knapp obviously made a serious impression on him. And this is something Mr. Reid also said in the interview I did with him. He said he was aware of Project Blue Book, but it was the information Robert Bigelow sent to him through George Knapp, actually, that really made him interested in pursuing the truth behind UAP. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, again, I'll just jump in quickly. Knapp knew that Harry Reid had this kind of, he was into the subject, and we're going back to the mid-90s, 95. So George Knapp introduced him to Robert Bigelow, and then he would sit in on the NIDS meetings with John Alexander, Edgar Mitchell, people like that, you know. So straight away, he's in there, you know, and he's, in his second term of, what was it back then? Yeah. This is where my American politics doesn't get good.
Clinton. 90s? Yeah.
Clinton.
No, I think he was in his second term of senator or governor or whatever he was.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? It was that far back. So he was sitting in on these NIDS meetings with Bigelow and those people that we all know have been in this game for some time. So he was just as involved, you know.
Oh, isn't that amazing that you know, he started that early doing that, but yet, you know, he played a pivotal role, and some even say he was responsible for getting Barack Obama elected for his second term. Like, you know, that's pretty intense. Like, you know, that he's out there trying to.
As in his first, he told Obama to run back in the day too.
Yeah. So
did he?
You know, and this is regardless of politics. It's a sitting president. It's somebody who won the presidency, and this person helped him become that president. And he also was a huge proponent of UAP investigation. So yeah, that's pretty awesome in my book. So.
Let's also remember that Mr. Reid was so supportive of Lou Elizondo, Mr. Mellon, you know, whenever...
he sent that letter, remember?
I do. He sent that letter.
Damn.
And well, there was a kick. That was a kick in the nuts for, I think it was Susan.
Susan Goff.
Her nuts must hurt.
Yeah,
but that was, that was the courage and you know, the I don't know, the young boxer in Harry Reid, that he was just, you know, standing in your corner, standing in Lou's corner, and, you know, debunking all the bullshit they were trying to discredit Lou with. So let's remember that. Josh, what do you think about Mr. Reid's tireless efforts to protect the people who were so important for the disclosure?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just like I was saying earlier. He's probably one of the early proponents of getting this into the mainstream and talked about in a serious way. So, you know, the work, what he's done to get this conversation moved forward within the community and also outside the community, within the political parts of the US and things like that. It's something which, you know, I really appreciate the work now, but I think we're going to see the fruit of it in like a few years' time. I think 3 or 4 years' time, I think we'll really start to see the work, what he did, you know, or has done throughout his life in getting this topic moved forward. So it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be a tribute to him as well. Once all this starts to come out in a more serious way, I think we'll all go back and thank him, you know, again for the work he's done. So yeah, it's just to echo what you guys have already said, really. I mean, for me, I'm not from the US, so in terms of the political side of the work he's done, it's not something which I know much about. But just in terms of the UFO topic, I know how much he's done and how much he's got this conversation moved forward. So yeah, it's just huge. It's just a huge thank you. And yeah, well, and like I was saying before, I guess we'll just see the fruits of his labor in a few years as well. So
yeah. Daniel, what do you think Mr. Reid knew but couldn't tell to the general public?
Well, he definitely knew a lot. I mean, he was a member of the Gang of Eight, and the Gang of Eight is a group of senators and representatives in the House, who is it's the Senate and House majority leaders, as well as the heads and vice chairs of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And is it the Armed Services Committee? I don't remember.
Service Committee,
and Armed Services as well. So these group of people it's kind of an oversight mechanism, which is supposed to basically, there's any intelligence activities, any black projects, including special access programs, with the very small exception of like, basically, if in case the Secretary of Defense allows, who's, the head of the Department of Defense, allows no one to know about it but them. With that very small exception, legally at least, these 8 people have to be informed of everything. And that things that the rest of Congress does not need to be informed about. So when you hear something from one of these 8 people, it really has a lot of weight, because they are, if you hear someone from the Gang of Eight saying, we don't know what these are, they're not ours, that's coming from somebody who is supposed to know if it's ours or not. So, when Harry Reid says things, he knows. It was his job to know, and if he doesn't know, then either our government is not telling him something that they should be, or it's not ours, and our government doesn't seem to know. So, by law, he knew a lot more than we will ever know. Not just because he was the senator from the state of Area 51. That's just the structure of oversight in our government, is that he's supposed to be informed of all these things, and then not just him, but all the staff. So it's interesting. So he knew a lot more about everything, not just UFOs, but everything black and classified.
It puts that whole Lockheed thing in a different context when you think of that.
It really does. It really does.
It really does. Maybe he knew that he was supposed to check something out that they had.
Right. Yeah.
Can I ask Max and Shawn? Can I ask you two something? Because obviously you had dealings with him when you were talking to him behind the scenes before everybody sees like the public face of him when he's on an interview. What was it like behind the scenes when you were talking to him before shows?
Oh, I wasn't talking to him behind the scenes. I was talking to his press person.
Were you? Oh, I see. Right. Okay. He just came straight on, did he?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you probably had the same opportunity I had, where you had maybe like 10 minutes before the show. He popped on just to check things and everything. What did he say to you? He was a super guy. Super guy. That's when I got to. He asked about my experience, because they wanted to know some information on me beforehand, and I sent it over, and they were pretty strict about like the bio that I sent them. She was like, his HR lady was like helping me make it nicer. So it was kind of funny. So he goes, I understand you had an experience, or what was that like? I told him about like the premonition dream part, and he goes, when did the dream come true? That was in between your sightings, or what happened? He's like, wow, that's pretty intense, or whatever, however he said it, I'm paraphrasing, but he's genuine about it, and that was awesome. And he made sure I knew how important it was that I do what I'm doing. He said, anytime, what you're doing is really, I think what you're doing is very important. He said that specifically. So that's a big deal to me. So
it's a big deal.
He was good.
It is
huge. Well, in the 10 minutes before I went live with Harry, he just wanted to talk about Holland. He had a couple of Dutch friends. So he was, he had a Dutch best friend or something, and he had been here before, and he knew some Dutch words, which was hilarious. And yes, no experience questions at all. No, he just wanted to talk about Holland. But you know, then again, Shawn, I agree with you. There was a way about him. He made me feel very comfortable and very, you know, special, because you know, he was validating what we are doing, all of us, right? He was like letting you know that whatever we're doing here is important and we should continue this. So, and actually, you know, him agreeing to an interview with Shawn, me, that said it all to me. You know, it was an incredible honor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you put it in context too, it's like, what is he doing on my channel? Like, what dude, why are you doing this?
No, but I think that goes to show that he cares, he's interested.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I mean, it shows a lot to his character that, you know, he recognizes what you guys are doing and you're doing it in an authentic way, and he wants to help and respond to that.
I just remember how important that was to me, and the tech stuff was just crazy. And
I was feeling for you so hard during that.
And they wanted to like reschedule, and they're like, how about we just do this another time? And I'm like, no, we're doing this.
I don't trust you.
Yeah. I have him now. I'm not letting him go.
Yeah, that's another thing, Shawn, isn't it? It makes you realize that people are finite, aren't they? They don't last forever. So if you're going to do something, make sure you do it. Don't put it off until tomorrow. Don't just go, I can do that next week. I can do that next year. You know, seize the day kind of thing. Just make sure you get it done, and also value your friends, value the people around you. You know, it's just an object lesson for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely. So, Graham, how do you think Mr. Reid is going into UAP history? Because you're the writer, you're the historian.
So, put me on the spot now.
Yeah. So, what do you feel is going to be his role in, let's say, your UAP history?
Well, if you're going to talk about UAP history and just rather than UFO history, then he comes in at the start, doesn't he? Because he's, as he said, as Vinnie was saying, as Shawn was saying, he's there at the beginning. He's there where, you know, just after the 2004 sightings. So actually, it'll probably start with them. But if you're talking about politicians getting involved and, you know, early adopters, he's your man. So he's going to have a chapter by himself, isn't he? When you know, whoever ends up writing his biography,
right?
In terms of, you know, with a UAP slant, that'll be, you know, that's where it comes in. Or somebody writes a history of modern UAPology. Let's call it that.
That'll be you.
He will
actually,
maybe not, but he'll be one of the first chapters. And then he'll just, you know, he'll be like that kind of seam that runs through all the subsequent chapters, because he's got a hand in everything going forward.
To put that in really, really good context, you know, there hasn't been like congressional interest in the topic since the mid '60s. Really, that's documented. And those congressmen who tried to get something done and question the Air Force, whether it be their own investigations or congressional hearings or what have you, wound up giving up, wound up bowing out and being talked out of it, you know? So all that time goes by, 30 some years or whatever, and Senator Reid comes and is like, yeah, we're getting a program. We're giving it money. We're studying this stuff. Bam. You know,
but he didn't want just quick results either, did he? He didn't want like just throw money at something. Right, it's got to deliver by, you know, next Wednesday sort of thing. Otherwise, I'm just going to pull the plug. It was right. It was like a long-term commitment there, wasn't it? It wasn't just a right. You know, I need to see something, and he probably wasn't pressuring them and badgering them. You just let them get on with it. And when it didn't necessarily come to anything straight away, he wasn't going to pull the plug and just walk away from it. He did stay with it, and he was still in there, even though he'd left politics to a certain degree. He wasn't really, you know, anything, you know, doing much apart from surviving, I guess, and just keeping going from day to day. But he was still prepared to come on the television and shows like yourselves and talk about it and make sure that it was still going. So yeah.
So Vinnie, who's going to take his place, man?
Wow. You know, it's
That's
funny.
impossible.
I saw that question, not in direct terms, earlier on, only a couple of hours ago, and there is no answer at this point. We can speculate.
You
know, we've got this new young. Sorry, Josh. Go on, Josh.
No, sorry, Vinnie.
I was just going to say we've got this new younger generation of people in politics in America. Your Marco Rubios and people like that who, you know, they could find their way to the White House eventually, who are proponents for transparency when it comes to UAP. That's kind of how I look at it from an outsider or from someone overseas. You know, that's what I see. I don't see the day-to-day politics and, you know, the controversies that do surround them. I look at the UFO subject now. Yeah. Is that right? Is that wrong? Well, you know, that conversation can go on forever. You know, I just don't get involved in it. But what I look at from this outside perspective is who's talking about UAP, who wants the biggest story known to mankind out in the public domain, you know. Yeah, so it's not that someone might it's not that someone might replace Harry Reid, but there are people on the side or the same side that he was on within the political establishment, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. Josh, if you look at you know, the developments around the Galileo project, Gillibrand, how are they going to cope with someone like Harry Reid, you know, being right behind them like a rock, right? Do you think now this loss is going to be very damaging, or do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it'd be damaging, just because a lot of the work what Harry Reid started like years ago is kind of that's been done now. You know, like the work the pieces he put together and started things off like all those years ago with ATIP especially. I mean, those pieces have already been made and that's already playing out. So I don't think we'll miss him in terms of like a security sort of blanket, if that makes sense, because he's already kind of laid like the foundations for this topic. But it'll probably encourage more people to kind of step up. I mean, you've mentioned Marco Rubio. I think Tim Burchett, he's been quite vocal the last few weeks and months as well. So there's people like that who potentially could not step into his shoes, but maybe take more of a lead with like the topic, if that makes sense. So I don't think we can replace him because he's a one-off, but you know, I think it might encourage more people within that world to kind of step up and take more of a lead with it. Yeah. Sure.
Right. Yeah. I think you hit it on the head too. Like maybe not replacement, but you know, somebody else does step up and kind of take the topic on. But it, you know, not being in on the politics because you're overseas and you know you just think about the UAP stuff and everything. It's still important that whoever does tries their best or is naturally kind of a bipartisan thing, and doesn't take extreme stances in one way or another, and then on top of it takes the UAP thing on, because whatever stance they take will be, you know, measured up against that UAP belief, you know, whether it's even like for or against, you know, abortion. I don't want to get into that, but, you know, or other rights of people or whatever. You know, that stuff will be important with whoever takes this on, you know, so. And I think he did a great job. You know, he was kind of that person. When I asked him about John Boehner, you know, he had good things to say about the guy. You know, he liked them, and they worked on things together, and it was a bipartisan effort with those two. You know, so I think that's important. Yeah.
Hey, Daniel, Daniel, if you could have interviewed Harry, what would it be you wanted to know from Mr. Reid? What would be your main question to get? What would be the thing you would want to get out of him?
What a great question. I mean, I think the first thing that comes to my head is, I don't know how he would be able to answer this, but on the phenomenon, remember, I think it was just B-roll footage. I happened to just get this amazing clip from him where James Fox asked him, and Reid admitted that the government is hiding a lot of evidence still regarding this topic. And when, like I said before, when you hear a Gang of Eight member say that, you're like, what? And I was always, after that came out, I was always kind of waiting for some journalist from a big paper to ask a follow-up or something like, hey, you said something pretty crazy back there. Would you mind elaborating? Because crazy in the sense that, like, that's quite a statement. I would like to ask for more details. And so I think that would be my question, is just, you know, where did you hear that? Have you seen something? If so, where is this? I don't know if you could answer any of these things, you know, but that definitely be my first question, is just, he's hinting at a knowledge of whether he's seen the specific evidence, that the evidence exists. And I want to know where he heard that, how he heard that, and then where is it? You know, so
yeah,
that would be my biggest question, because the more evidence we have out in the public realm, the easier this all becomes, right? Trying to reduce the stigma and get society to take notice. So,
well, actually, I did ask Mr. Reid, is this thing real? And he said, I don't know.
Right. And I remember that. I remember being like, oh, like, what is? I think he's definitely pleading the fifth a bit there. So,
I think I'd have asked. I think I'd have asked something along the lines of what Daniel was saying. Is that when he tried to look into Lockheed Martin and that, is that because he wanted confirmation of something that he'd already been hinted at or told before, and now he just wanted that final, like, yep, that's true. And did he look into other USAPs or grey areas? Those small little annexes hidden between the government and the aerospace corporations, that it's not black, it's not white, but did he get told things and then he was like, right, I'm going for the confirmation? He must have
been told something. Sure, yeah.
Do you think, Vinnie, that Mr. Reid knew more, but because of his position or former position, put people forward to speak out on the topic and actually disclose whatever he is not allowed to disclose because of his position?
Purely speculative, but we've all been a part of this slow drip disclosure for the last 4 years. Maybe he was, an integral part of that, and there was a longer term plan. I mean, this is pure speculation, obviously, but it seems logical that they were all playing the same game at the same time. And I say game, I still mean it in a serious manner, and not secretive for the wrong reasons, but for the right reasons. So yeah, it could have been that he knew things and he was biding time, with the same, as well as people like Lou Elizondo and other people like that. So yeah, he probably did.
So Graham, I'm going to ask you the same question as I asked Daniel. If you were to interview Mr. Reid, or had the possibility to, what would be the main thing you would want to get out of him? What is it you would like to know?
I think all the things I probably want to know have been asked already. I can't think of anything specific off the top of my head that you haven't covered yet. And the things that you asked him and the things that Shawn asked him, and just what Daniel said there, I would have to seriously go through everything that's been said about him and everything he said to try and find something new. It's not that everything's been said, it's just that it seems to be all the kind of major things that we want to know at the moment have been covered. But as time goes on, we will find things that we should have asked him when he was still with us.
So Graham, do you think on his deathbed, like he whispered something in someone's ear?
There's been a lot of things on the chat about this. I've just been reading, looking scrolling up, and I'm just thinking it's not necessarily the time and place to be talking about that. But it sounds slightly disrespectful to actually talk about kind of deathbed confessions and that kind of thing. So
it wasn't meant like that, but
but just with respect, Max, I'm not going to go there if you don't mind. Not at this particular time, but I will talk about that at some other time. But I'm not prepared to go there at the moment.
I wish that I would have got an answer on this question that I asked him, because I thought it was a great question. And I asked when he went to the Bigelow conference, that Knapp basically brought him into. And, he always said this, which is funny. He's like, there were kooks, there were serious people, and there is they're oddballs, and there's good, smart people. But I asked him, like, what were you shown there that made you leave with, this mission or goal to investigate this further and push for it? Like, because he said, I went there and I was shown something, or, there's something there that really lit his flame. And I tried asking him, like, no, exactly what was it that you saw, and I didn't really get, what I wanted out of that, but that'd be what I would be curious on. Was it a ship? Was it a video? Was it a body? Like, what was it?
Those early NIDS meetings in the 90s, mid to late 90s, were high strangeness just as much as they were nuts and bolts. They were remote viewing with John Alexander and all the things that he was working with at the time, pre-Skinwalker Ranch and Bass and things like that. So the high strangeness mixed with the UAP was happening right back then. So he probably went into that as his first port of call.
Really, I suppose you could. I suppose one thing you might want to ask in that case would be along the lines of, what kind of things in that field did you think was just beyond the realm of, I can't deal with this. What was there anything that you weren't prepared to actually, embrace? So that might be a question. I suppose thinking back to I might ask.
When I was interviewing Mr. Reid, I did ask him, what stood out the most to him when he got this information from Mr. Bigelow. And I think he said it was mostly the witness statements that actually really convinced him this is a thing that could be real. And he said these are regular people, no people who have like a weird background of mental illness, or it was a regular Joes and Janes. And he said there's no reason for these people to make this up, and they're not very vocal about it either. You literally had to pull it out of them. Right. So that is actually what I think he could disclose to me at that time. What do you guys think about that? It's the witnesses that might have been key to convincing Mr. Reid.
Well, I think the witnesses are still to this day are just thrown under the bus and not really respected as much as they should be, especially for people that dig through the documents throughout the decades and how many pilots and military servicemen and women have gone through this. I read them on my show every week of an Air Force pilot, a major with serious nighttime flying experience just yesterday in Japan, flew 17 hours at night in March, saw this thing with two legs, red and blue, and, went after it, went away, and he's told it's Venus,
I think another big thing that we need to bear in mind is
we're basically doing that now.
Yeah, the ORSAP research over the 2 years, when they had people boots on the ground looking at public cases of experiences, these are in that huge, I think there's 7 or 11 databases within BAS and ORSAP that we have never seen and may never see. Right. Now, how much did Harry Reid see of those databases when you're having boots on the ground investigations looking into all the high strangeness cases? That could have swayed his thought process massively, but we'll never know that, or we may not know it for years and years. That's something I'm always really aware of when talking about it.
So, Vinnie,
good point.
Vinnie, you were about to interview Mr. Reid, as you just told us. Can you maybe give us a little tip of the iceberg of your question list? It's basically the same question for Daniel and Graham, but now I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched upon it briefly about touching upon the grey areas between the aerospace and the government, the USAPs, the unacknowledged special access programs that he may have been heard about down the rumor mill at the water cooler, as Lou Elizondo likes to say it, and then gone to try and find the evidence. I'd have tried to touch upon that, formulate questions where it's not so much direct. You come at it from different angles to see if you can worm the answers out of them. It was a big interview. It would have been great, but I hadn't planned it because I didn't get past that stage of talking to his assistant. I took a massive step back when Shawn announced he was doing it. I thought
he blames it on me.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get to do it because Shawn butted in.
No, and that's why I could have pursued it. But what's the point in having the same guy on, within a matter of a few weeks? I didn't want to disrespect Shawn in that respect, And
he was sick too, apparently, he might not have been able to anyways.
And they're the kind of interviews that you do have to kind of chase back a little bit. And I'm not one of those people that kind of second, third, fourth emails going, you haven't responded for a while. What's going on? I'm not that kind of person. So, it is what it is. So, yeah, it's a shame I never got to speak to him, but I respect the way it played out in a way,
Yeah. So, you guys, is there anything you expect to come out? But I don't mean to be disrespectful, but with his passing and a lot of stuff that developed, like the Galileo project, the Gillibrand Amendment. Do you think this was because of, for a huge part, because of Mr. Reid's efforts, to create disclosure? And how big do you think his role was in getting this amendment done? Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't know really, because I don't really know the background of his life that much, if that makes sense. I can only judge what I've read and what I've seen myself. And, the work, what you guys have mentioned he's done in like the past with this topic. I mean, the stigma must have been so bad back then as well. I mean, it's improved a lot these days, but I can't even imagine how difficult it would have been for Harry Reid to kind of go into these dark circles within the government and outside the government as well. You've touched on the private industry side of things before. I mean, it would have been a really hard job for him to go into these places and speak to these people and get and put this information together. So, you've just got to applaud his work, and all the hard work he's done behind the scenes. And like I said before, the work, what he's done to get this information into a place where we can kind of put things together ourselves within the community. It's just a thank you to Harry Reid. Like, I don't really know what else to say apart from that, really. And it's something what I'd need to answer again once I've done some more reading on his history and things, to be honest, Max. But just from what I've seen and what I've observed from Harry Reid over the years, from what I've known of him, he's just done a great job. And that's all I can say right now.
One thing I'll just say is that I noticed John Greenwald put something out earlier where I think it's after 5 years of a senator or someone passing, the documents and information relating to them is released somewhere or somehow. Now, bear with me because I'm going to butcher this because I didn't read really in depth into it. So about 5 years, things get released. So it could include correspondence dating back to the ORSAP days. That would be great to see. But for some reason, it's been the DOD or the Pentagon or someone has delayed it to 2026 and 2036, depending on what data it's talking about. So that 5-year thing has gone out the window for Harry Reid, and that's going to throw up a lot of questions. Why change it for him? What are you holding back that you don't want us to see in 5 years' time? Why have we got to wait to hear about his legacy and what he might have known? Seems very strange. So go and look into it, because I didn't do a good job, but there you go.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So guys, what do you think drove or was motivating Mr. Reid to so tirelessly and actively try to get awareness on UAP? Because one of the things that still messes with my mind is that he had access to Blue Book, he had access to Sign and Grudge. It was when Mr. Bigelow sent them information, and that's what pulled him over the line, right? So I wonder that if there was already information available, what made him be so active and so how do you say this in English? So driven to pursue this and get some money. What was it that Mr. Reid? What made him so convinced?
We can only speculate, really, I guess. But I would, I think we touched on a little bit of it already, like the witnesses, all the witnesses. Yeah. If he's had access to Blue Book, it doesn't take you very long at all to just run into military sighting after military sighting, and then to have the ones of recent years, and he probably knew about other ones that we don't know about, right?
For sure,
So, I would imagine it has to do something like that, and then you also think of Lockheed and Gang of 8, and maybe he knew that something was there and he wanted to check it out, so you put 2 and 2 together and. We got to figure this out. This is not cool, guys. Not cool.
Yeah. Right. I mean, really, he's doing his job. Like, I think anyone who's looking into this from a leadership perspective, I think it makes so much sense to look into this. that I more want the people who aren't looking into this, I want them to explain themselves, because, you know, this country, America, we spend basically half our budget on a military spending. And if as a taxpayer, I find out, yeah, there's things in our airspace, they come in and out kind of at will. There might be an aviation hazard. We don't really know what's going on. Like, well, why am I giving you $760 billion this year if you can't even tell me why things are flying into our airspace? So I think, and I think Harry Reid was very curious, and I'm sure his curiosity led that. But just from a congressional point of view, it seems to make a lot of sense to be like, guys, we should probably look into this. And we're really not, at least not on a congressional level that we're aware of. Maybe, I'm sure there's plenty of the DOD looking into it, as they've admitted over the years that I researched it and looked into it. And, you know, as you know, Shawn, the thing just kind of, the cycle repeats itself over and over again. But from a congressional level, since the 60s, there really hasn't been anything, at least publicly. So yeah. I think his curiosity did, but I'd like to think too that from a perspective of our members of armed services and safety, of just, I feel like maybe he could see past this inane stigma for what this issue really is, which is, you know, at best case scenario, really fascinating curiosity, and worst case scenario, a major threat, right? And the fact that that answer hasn't really, there really isn't an answer, and the reason there isn't an answer is because people don't want to talk about it. To me, at least, and I would hope maybe to Senator Reid, as you know, we're all just speculating, but it isn't a very good answer. So. Yeah. I'd like to think that his curiosity led him down there, but also the fact that, hey, this isn't, the status quo right now isn't really in an okay place, and I actually have the power to do something about it. Yeah. I like to hope that maybe that helped him do things that otherwise maybe to some people would be like, well, I don't want to go there.
I think a lot of politicians have a kind of thing where they get told stories, and there's like a kind of surface layer to an issue, and a lot of them will just like look at that. They won't delve too deeply. Whereas I think he probably did. He had, as Danny said, he had that curiosity. He didn't just buy the cover story for UFOs. Right. He wanted to see past that. He realized he had enough political nous and just enough intelligence to be able to realize that story didn't hold water, and there was something. It might not have been some kind of huge conspiracy about aliens, but there was definitely something lying behind it. Mm-hmm. And whatever that was, he wanted to know because it had a direct effect on people. And he was obviously interested in people, not just balance sheets and not just national security. So therefore, it had a direct bearing on his constituents, who he was legally and honor bound to actually protect and serve. So
think about it. Think about it. He validated scientists too, right? Yeah, they're doing that, just like what you said, Graham. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, he validated scientific efforts towards it.
Yeah. They're all going in the same direction. They're all trying to look for what was behind this cover story. So I guess, and I'm only really speculating, but I guess he wanted to actually support them any way he could. And if that meant, you know, his putting his political capital behind them, or some capital as in money behind them, then he was prepared to do that.
So Graham,
if you just look from an alternative history point of view, if it hadn't been for him, where would we be now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Graham, the question for you, man. So Mr. Reid, of course, disclosed it was the witnesses that really pulled him over the line. But do you think that it were mostly the military witnesses that convinced him? And do you think it could have been the nuclear weapon thing? Because this is the elephant in the room, right? Mr. Reid, I think, should have some knowledge about that stuff. Could that be a motivation for him to dive into that, or what do you think?
I think they're all important at the end of the day, but the nuclear and the military issues certainly carry a lot more weight in terms of people's training and to do with national security issues. So naturally, they're probably going to take precedence when a politician looks at them. But ordinary people's experiences are just as important at the end of the day, because they're the people who, you know, pay the taxes, who vote. So if you look at it from just a purely cold political perspective, then they're just as important in the round as well.
That's why I will always come back to the 2 years of ORSAP and this humongous database that exists. That's where I keep going, and I can't help it.
Yeah.
Because it's locked away somewhere. If people have seen, and we heard James Lukatsky talk about it when he first came out earlier in the year with George Knapp and Colin Kelleher. You know, that one story about the orb that went through the guy's chest. And there's a huge database with cases very similar to that kind of thing from just regular members of the public. And Harry Reid happened to see some of that. How much more conclusive do you need for something anomalous being here?
Yeah. Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, God, I wish Bigelow would release. I believe it's proprietary. I just, it's definitely. Yeah, I think I think he's into it because I know he really is looking at it from an R&D perspective as an aerospace company. But at the same time, I would love someone to ask him why, maybe Knapp or something, because I know they have a great relationship. Hey, why haven't you released this? Because if he has data that could really open this up, why not release it? Why not? And I know there's HIPAA rules with the health situation, but that I think without identities.
But it's just like the government why they don't give more information, right? There's always some excuse that they have. There's always you could always come up with something to say, oh, I can't because national security. But then you can just go in and black out the stuff that's sensitive. But no, I mean, I can't.
Yeah, but I don't think Bigelow. But is Bigelow still government funded?
I don't know.
I think the contract through ORSAP and BAS, it kind of gave BAS the power. It gave them the realm to keep the information, to store it, lock it away. There might be few people associated within the government that had access to it. Who's got access to it now? I don't know. But we do know that BAS have got it locked away somewhere.
I will say Lieutenant Tim McMillan, who does a lot of great reporting on this area, has said that he's seen the report, and every page on the print on the bottom, it says proprietary BAS. And then the people he's talked to off the record have said the reason they haven't said anything is because they don't want to get in trouble with Bigelow. Nothing to do with the government, at least as far as we know. So as far as we
don't want to get in trouble with Bigelow.
Yeah. So I think
you're getting sued.
Yeah, exactly. I think they can too, because it's IP, right? It's private.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot more protection for private businesses own proprietary information than there is something based in the government. So
no oversight.
Next question is, what are they doing with it?
If Bigelow
this is very interesting. Yeah, this is very interesting.
Bigelow still has contracts with like aerospace for his inflatable things too with NASA. So that might be a relationship that you want to keep going well. And if they don't want you releasing that data for whatever reason, you may
reputation don't spill the will.
Keep the man happy.
Yeah.
So did any of you guys see the Bigelow interview on Rogan a couple of months ago?
Many times.
That was a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, because he avoided talking about Skinwalker Ranch, BAS, and all of that. But he must have said before it happened, we cannot talk about Skinwalker Ranch and BAS and ORSAP. It had to be. It went around everything other than that. I mean, come on, surely that would have been the main point of conversation that naturally would have happened. I've watched it multiple times.
Yeah, well, Joe tried to grill him a little bit. He tried to get some information. I think
he was told not to ask. That's my opinion. I think he was told, don't ask.
I remember thinking I didn't really appreciate how Rogan conducted that one. And I can't remember why. I'll have to go back.
I agree.
Yes,
I agree.
I didn't finish it because I got frustrated. I was like, "This not."
Like he was kind of like, go ahead.
Could have been a bit harder on him, to be honest, and ask and just probe him a bit more. Well, which is what he used to do before he switched over to Spotify. His show used to be so much different,
grittier.
So true.
I think you'll find that one interview was just a dip. That's why I think he was told don't ask, because he's not afraid to, when he's talking to some of these. I'm not even going to go there.
I mean, look at his interview with DeLong, right?
COVID things and stuff like that. He goes there now. But that one interview, go back and watch it. He had opportunities to go through the timeline of Bigelow to ask about the many, many years of Skinwalker. And
he
Joe
probably
would love to know that stuff. Of course he would.
He probably
had to sign like 1,000 disclaimers
either.
or something.
Yeah.
it left me so underwhelmed. I can't remember any of it, I'm afraid. So.
Yeah, no,
it's just
Bigelow on 60 Minutes was better, right?
So yeah.
Well, I did enjoy. I did enjoy Knapp and Corbell and Mellon actually on Rogan, because it was much more exciting than Bigelow.
I've watched them all and analyzed them all multiple times. Multiple times.
What's your biggest takeaway, Vinnie?
Do you know what? I don't think there's any one thing. I still think a lot of the information that comes out from these UFO interviews is for the newer people who are coming into the subject and want that next piece of information after they've seen it in the mainstream media. Like, what's next? I know, a podcast, Rogan, obvious choice. When you look at the interview Rogan did with Commander Fravor, great interview, but then jump onto the one with Lex Friedman, goes that little bit higher, but then we've seen it a little bit further than that because we're a part of this community. So,
Sure.
Yeah, great comment here. Jesus, the long interview was a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the long one, I think they did it too soon. They should have waited until after the New York Times one came out, then did the interview. Would have went a lot in like a different way. I think if they did that.
Yeah.
So.
Those TR3B videos, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. Still on YouTube, I think that one as well. The clip of like the ball which makes the craft like disappear. It's still on YouTube somewhere for sure.
Yeah.
So guys, in memory of Mr. Reid, any final thoughts on his passing?
You can just go in order, I guess. I'll go first. Yeah, I just think if we take anything away from it, which we should, it should be to have his gusto and his strength in going at topics that mean something to you, no matter what anyone else thinks of it, and no matter what could happen from it. If you believe in it and it's important to you in your heart and you know it, go for it. And don't be afraid, because things can happen that you would never expect. And I can't speak for him, obviously, but I think, what he would tell you if he was with us today is that he might not have ever expected what is happening now, and he might not have had that in mind when he first tried doing this. He was just doing the right thing. And you can see what blossoms from that. So I think, if we take something away from him, it's be bold, be strong, be passionate.
Well said, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd just say that, with the reality that he was willing to talk to people like us, Shawn, me, you, I know I didn't get to that point, but it shows that he was willing to talk to anybody. So I think that reiterates that any small voice in any community is still a voice that is worth listening to. So everyone is just as important, no matter who you are. So don't be afraid to talk about it. And the rest would just be reiterating what Shawn says. I suppose my final words would be condolences to his widow and his family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh?
Well, yeah, first off, condolences to his friends and family, first of all. And, from what you guys have said, Shawn and Vin, I'd just like to match those words, really. And, the fact that, he was such an early proponent of this topic and getting this information out there shows you what kind of a person he was. He wasn't there to kind of go against the main view and people within the government who were probably trying to push him in a different way with this topic. So he went against all of that and, stood up for what he believes in. And those are the kind of people we need in this community. Within that circle of people, is to come out and engage with this community a lot more. So the fact that he spoke to you, Matt, he spoke to you, Shawn, he was going to speak to you, Vinnie, that just shows you what kind of a person he is. And the work he's done, like I've said a couple of times today, it's going to be felt a lot more the next few years, I think. Definitely.
Yeah. Daniel?
Well said, everyone. I think, he, even if you take just UAP out of the picture, he had one heck of a life and left quite a legacy. And the story is amazing. If you guys don't know it, you should look it up. Like he, has really, really kind of the American dream from growing up very, very poor and becoming who he is and one of the most powerful people in government. I think that's a really amazing story. And I think optimistic hope is that while he's left one heck of a legacy now, I think if this topic does blow up in the way I think we all hope it was, he will be leaving a whole new legacy behind after that as well, that many people will say, wait, hold on, this is all because of Reid? You know, everyone's going to have that moment maybe in a few years, like Josh has said. So that is my hope. I think hopefully he will get the due credit he is due years from now when people are more talking about this topic.
For sure.
Yeah.
He's been a huge asset to the UAP community, but he's also been a huge loss. And I think that we're going to struggle to find somebody in the next months, years, who will be of the same stature and the same, will command the same sort of respect and have the same access that he did. But whichever way it happens, and whoever comes along next to carry the torch, they won't be anything like him. There'll never be another Harry Reid.
Yeah, I think his legacy speaks for itself. But I do think we are. I don't think we know the depth of what this man. Well, history will tell. But I do think that whatever he has done is so much more than we know right now. I think it's almost prophetic, right? Like an apostle or something. He's one of the apostles of disclosure, I guess. I don't think I'm exaggerating, actually. So I do think that, whatever Mr. Reid has done by supporting Lou, by, putting his own good name on the line, for this cause, is worth. It's not. I can't put it in words how much that's worth. But history will tell, I guess, and I think it's going to be huge. But that's just me.
I agree. I'll agree. Yeah.
Great.
So, guys, before we say goodbye to our audience, I would like to know what you guys are up to. Let me start with you, Shawn. What's coming up, man?
This week, kind of just doing some freelance stuff when I feel like it, I guess. Next week, I have a couple guests. Nothing overly crazy or insane. Just continuing to plug along like I plug along and diving and I think I'm going to try transitioning to maybe newer relevant stuff a little bit, and maybe personal sightings versus civilian sightings, like doing some research on that versus military sightings. So I'm interested in doing that because there's so many more cases there, and I want to put a little effort into data on what these things are, any intent and what the deal is there. I think it's time for me to take that on. So
that sighting today on Twitter, Shawn, the one I think it was a viewer sent it into you, but the one you posted today on Twitter, that was really cool. That one you posted.
Oh, that video? Yeah.
Really cool.
No idea what that is. I just thought it was very interesting. That's about it. That's about it. But yeah, it's captivating, but no idea what it is. Yeah. So who knows?
All right.
Yeah, but that's what I'll be doing. So
Vinnie.
more research.
Yeah. So I've had a little break from YouTube for the holidays and stuff, but I am back a week tonight on YouTube. I'm going to be joined by Chris Leto. We're going to be kind of looking back over 2021, but also looking forward into 2022 and pretty much speculating about what we want to see and things like that. So, yeah, always love speaking to Chris. So I'm really excited to jump back into things with him. Then a week after that, I'm joined by Gunther Hofer. Now, Gunther has joined me before. He was there at the scene of the 1994 Ariel School case. He was one of the first researchers on the scene. We talked about that the first time I had him on. This time he's coming back to talk about other African cases. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then
that sounds so cool.
That's going to be awesome, man. I can't wait. And then a few weeks later, I fly out to Colombia to film this documentary series. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. Josh, you would
go. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I don't want to talk about it now. So move on.
Oh, okay. Now I want to talk about it.
No.
Josh, so are you and Artemis up to cool new stuff?
Yeah, well, we've changed our name now to the Josh and Artemis Show because prime time was just impossible to find on YouTube for our channel, so we changed the name. So it's now the Josh.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, probably get a bunch of Michael Jordan clips.
Yeah, exactly. So tonight we're on Priscilla's show, doing like a rundown of 2021 and like the best UFO stories of like the year, and we'll probably go into predictions for next year as well. Tomorrow we're going to be on that one time I was abducted, their show, and I think they're going to be coming on our show in January as well. Apart from that, we're working on new guests for January. We've got a couple of people lined up, but we're just waiting for confirmation. So yeah, just stay tuned for like the announcements and things. Really, I'm also working on something as well, which it's kind of UFO related, but kind of not. But it could be big for the community. But I'll reveal more in a few weeks for that one.
Oh, tip of the iceberg.
Teaser.
I can't say anything for now, but yeah, it could be something big for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel.
All right. Yeah, I am also, as well as just lurking the depths of Twitter, I I have my own Tuesday show with the fine folks over at Unidentified Celebrity Review. It's called Known Quantities. Honestly, I think, Josh, you have to come on the show stuff. I think everyone else here has been on the show at this point.
I can come at any time, mate.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. We'll get in touch. So yeah, every Tuesdays, it should be starting up in the new year. I'm really excited about it. It's been a lot of fun. Had a nice little holiday break, and back at it, as we all know.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I enjoy your show, Daniel.
Thanks, man.
Doing great.
You're a known quantity, dude.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
All right. So, Graham, let's go, man.
I'm 320 pages into a new book.
Wow.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
I'm not saying anything more about it at the moment.
Why is everyone so mysterious? God damn it.
I will say everyone has got to read, everyone watching, if you haven't read Graham's book, UFOs Before Roswell, you have to read it. It is.
Oh, yes.
I think it is just, it's so well done. It's such a period that does not have, I think, a lot of backed up research. And it really, too, is just, I feel like anyone is like, well, it's our tech, and it's like this book is just like, what is this in the 40s? And what's happening?
But I think it also shows you how to research, because with the footnotes that Graham puts in the book, it's like this isn't just story or hearsay. This is where I got it from. Go and look it up, and then if you want to go off into your own avenues based on that research, do it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you have to research every aspect of it. You can't just. You know, you have to. He took on, the possible Nazi ships and all that, and properly figure, and properly investigated each one.
See what you make of the next one. You're only as good as your last book, so let's see what happens with this one.
Well, you said it.
Yeah.
So humble.
Hey, congratulations, Graham, on your last book. But
thank you.
Looking forward for your new book.
Okay. Happy New Year, everybody, and best wishes for 2022, and to everybody in the chat as well.
Yeah. Condolences to Reid.
Yeah.
So, guys, on that note, let's remember Mr. Reid. That's why we're here. It's a huge loss for the UFO community. I hope that his memory will be a blessing forever. And, lots of strength to his family, friends, and loved ones. So thank you guys for honoring him and remembering Mr. Reid. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Guys, if you want to hang around, chat a little bit after we go out. Yeah. So to my audience, thank you guys for doing the same, for honoring Mr. Reid and remembering him. And let's, think about what a huge loss his passing is and what this man has accomplished. And, his legacy will be here forever. So we owe him big time.
Yeah.
So people, happy New Year's in a couple of days, and I hope you had a great holiday, and talk to you very soon. Ciao.